Thank you all for coming today. This is our hike out in the Mohawk River Recreation Corridor today. If you're not familiar with BARC, we're a watchdog organization of Mount Hood National Forest, and we also monitor the surrounding bear land management land around Mount Hood National Forest. We've been around for over 10 years now, and basically we have led these hikes every month, every second Sunday of the month. We also do, besides these hikes, we do other things where we go out to these project areas where they're looking at cutting timber or doing other things. And we, what we call ground truth, where we look around the area, see if there's anything that we can identify of any sensitive plants or animal species, looking at making sure there's adequate buffers to riparian areas. And then we also monitor what the documents that for these projects come out. They have to go through this process through the National Environmental Policy Act, where they have to create a document, either an environmental assessment or environmental impact statement, where the Forest Service or the Bureau of Land Management goes through and try to identify what their potential impacts are going to be through the project and what their mitigations are going to be through the project. And so we monitor those documents as well. So that's kind of a quick introduction to BARC. As you saw along the drive, we're in the Molalla River area. It provides drinking water to both the city of Molalla and the city of Canby. The headwaters is the Table Rock Wilderness. If you haven't hiked there before, I really recommend it. It's very beautiful. Right now the roads up there are snowed in, but once June or July happens, the snow melts, and it's very beautiful up there. There's a lot of good geological formations up there. Another interesting fact about the Molalla River is that there's no dams that exist on the river at all. A lot of our dams and a lot of our rivers have too many dams on it, but this river doesn't have any. Right now, today we're going to be hiking through the Molalla River Recreation Corridor. The BLM purchased this land from Cabaham Forest Industry back in 1992. The BLM went in and closed about 13 miles of logging roads and converted these roads into trails. And one of the trails that we'll be hiking on today will be the Huckleberry Trail. And that was one of the roads that they closed and turned into a trail. And that was one of the trails that the Molalla Indians used to go up and pick huckleberries up to Table Rock Wilderness, according to one brochure that I read. In 1994, the BLM approved development of 12 miles of single track trails. There's been a lot of various organizations, from Molalla River Rush to a bunch of mountain biking and equestrian groups coming out here and building those trails and maintaining those trails. And the visitation to this area is estimated about 8,000 people per year, with half of those using the trail system. There's also a lot of campsites, and there's a Molalla River Recreation Corridor plan that came out. We're looking at building new campsites in this area. And so basically, BARC's interests, we're a member of the Molalla River Alliance. They have a strong interest in preserving this area for recreational opportunities, as well as preserving the diverse ecosystem in the corridor. Their interest is bringing in tourism dollars to the city of Molalla by people who are coming out and visiting this area. And basically, I mean, that's why BARC has a really huge interest in this area. There's a lot of recreational trails, there's a lot of tourism opportunities, and we're deciding that the Bureau of Land Management decided to cut along a lot of the trail system in this area that the volunteer community worked so hard on. The timber sill that we're coming in today is called Andy's Cabin. It's about 566 acres, and the trees range from 50 to 100 years in age. They're mostly Douglas fir, and they're about 80 years in age. As we pass by, they are currently helicopter logging units 8, 9, and 12 of the timber sill. And I should have passed out handouts, which I'm going to pass out soon. But this is the timber sill area. And so right now we're down here in this area here, and we're going to be visiting Unit 17 and Unit 15 here. and are currently helicopter logging units 8, 12, and 9 in this area here, and that's where when we're going down to Malala River Road, that's the helicopter we have seen in that area.
Hey man, when you say helicopter logging, like, were they actually logging with the helicopters?
So what they're doing is that they came in here through like with a track harvester, and I don't think we'll see one today, but it's basically they come in with a track harvester and it cuts the tree, and then it picks it up, and then it just loads it onto a logging truck. But in this situation, they can't. They're trying. The BLM is trying to reduce the amount of damage to the existing trail systems in this area. So they are, instead of putting it onto a logging truck, they went in there with a track harvester, cut the trees, but then they're going to tie it, I guess, with some type of cables to the trees, and then use a helicopter to pick up the tree and then bring it down
instead of the trucks.
Instead of the trucks, yeah. So that's
Is it one log at a time or bunches?
Is it usually one log at a time?
It's several.
It's several? Yeah.
It depends, but generally, I think they pick up several at a time.
So it sounds like it's several at a time. I have never witnessed it live before. I've seen video of it before. In the video I've seen, the trees were very large, and it was about one. The name of the Annie's Cabin basically came from a volunteer who was out here. His name was Jim Williams, and his wife's name was Annie Miller. And they had a cabin, and if you're looking at the map, it's just south of Unit 6. And there were BLM volunteers. They worked here to preserve the area. They have a kid named Squirrel. They lived in a trailer that was next to the cabin from June 1992 to December 1993, and then Jim passed away in October of '93. And I have a photo. I can grab that real quick. Of Annie's cabin, so people can see what it looks like. And the wind's picking up right now. So that's the picture of Annie's cabin, and I can pass that around. And I think let's go ahead and move over to the SEPA over there. It looks like it's about to rain. Annie's cabin is located in this area just south of Unit 6. That's where they're currently logging. That's why one of the reasons why we can't visit out there today, but it's in this area. And again, we're down in this area here. In 2004, the Bureau of Land Management started the scoping process, and that's basically where they get people's input about the timber sale project. They basically called it during the scoping process that the Annie's Cabin timber sale was a thinning project that was designed to help provide sustainable supply of timber, maintain the health and the growth of the developing stands and matrix designated lands, and then facilitate the development of late successional habitat in riparian areas. In 2005, the Bureau of Land Management submitted an environmental assessment with a finding of no significant impact. And that's where the public has the opportunity to make a comment. You need to make your comments during that stage of the process if you want to do a legal challenge. And BARC did comment during that time period. And through that environmental assessment, they analyzed 3 different project alternatives. One was a proposed action, one was helicopter alternative, and then one was no action alternative. In 2007, they came out with their decision rationale. And it authorized a mixed alternative plan to commercially thin 566 acres of forest, 85 acres of which are located in riparian areas. And the plan calls for a building of 0.6 miles of new roads, maintenance of 20 miles of roads, clearing 5 acres for road construction and helicopter landing. They added helicopter yarding and seasonal operating restrictions, and supposedly incorporate measures to reduce physical disturbances on trails and impose restrictions on trail use during harvest activities. In 2008, BARC took the BLM to court. The BLM had an attorney from Ferris Lumber, who was the person who won the auction for this timber sale. They had their attorney. The Ferris Lumber Company's attorney is an intervenor, according to court documents. BARC argued that the environmental assessment for the project violates the National Environmental Policy Act by failing to properly analyze the cumulative impacts of the project on water quality, and that means that cumulative impacts means that they have to monitor projects for past, present, and future, and look at the overall impact, not just the impact of this project just alone. They didn't properly analyze northern spotted owl. There was actually a spotted owl that was located in Unit 23, and they have this weird policy that when they find a spotted owl, they hear it hoots one time, they have to go out there 2 more other times for it to actually be considered to be a protective area for spotted owl, and they only heard it once. So they decided they didn't need to protect the northern spotted owl in Unit 23. We also said that they didn't properly have a good plan to prevent the spread of invasive species. We have found invasive species such as holly and Scotch broom, and those are species that are not native here, and then they tend to spread around, and we found that mostly in Unit 1. Another thing that we challenged them on was that they didn't analyze the hardwoods and the biodiversity. As we walk around today, we'll see some big leaf maple and alder trees, and in some of the units they are marked for cut. And then the impacts of logging to riparian reserves, which are kind of like the buffer areas to rivers and streams. The Judge Michael Mossman, who was appointed by Bush in 2003, before that he was previously an Oregon U.S. District Attorney. He ruled in favor of the Bureau of Land Management based on the Lands Council versus McNair decision that was ruled a couple months beforehand in the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. And basically, the ruling from that is that the court should not act as a panel of scientists that instructs the agency, chooses among scientific studies, and orders the agency to explain every possible scientific uncertainty. So basically, his overall decisions basically, I feel like, in my personal opinion, eliminate the checks and balance system, because we're supposed to use the court in order to challenge the executive branch, because the Bureau of Land Management is underneath the executive branch. But in this ruling, they're basically saying that the judicial system should not question anything that the executive branch does scientifically, which makes me nervous. And that's like the whole point of the whole judicial system: make sure that the executive branch is following what they're supposed to do. So that's kind of an overall history of the Timbersaw project.
1, 2.
I wanted to stop here real quick just to get everyone a good feel of what the forest looks like before logging. This was one of the proposed timber sale units in Annie's cabin, but after a lot of discussion with the Bureau of Land Management and the community, they decided to not include this unit as part of the timber sale because of how close it is to the Aquila Vista area, where that area is used a lot for educational programs for local elementary schools. A lot of these trees are 80 years old. They're Douglas fir, and this is basically what these units that we have been monitoring look like. And the trees have pretty good. They've recovered well in the 80 years. There's good spacing between trees. When I think of thinning projects, I think of trees are very close in together, and then trying to cut down those trees. But that's the difficult time that I'm having to see with this project when I go through these units, because these trees are not really that close in. They're 10, 20 feet apart. And so, but I just want to stop here and just point out this really beautiful forest here and point out that this is what it looked like before logging.
Was this a plantation at one time? Because they all seem fairly uniform in age.
Yeah, basically they came in here, logged this 80 years ago, and then they replanted the Douglas fir in this area.
80 years ago?
It was approximately about 80 years ago, just by the size of the trees.
So there must have been really big old growth before that.
Yeah, there's actually some large stumps. One of the units I was going to take you to that was Unit 9, but since they're now actively logging that unit right now, we can't go there. But there's some really large tree stumps, and there's also very large coarse woody debris. And coarse woody debris are basically like nurse logs or trees that are resting on the ground, and they're about over 20 inches in diameter. But a lot of these trees are actually like way over like 36 inches in diameter, and they provide really good habitat to a lot of different species. And I can pass this around, but this is the like the coarse woody debris that in Unit 9. It's getting a little wet because of the rain. But there's this really large piece of coarse woody debris here, and then this one large one back there. And then can pass this around for people to see. And then and the unit that we're about to come up to, Unit 17, had a lot of large coarse woody debris in it. It's kind of strange because they're supposed to protect the coarse woody debris as much as they can during the logging operations. And for some reason, I can't find it in the unit. I cannot explain it. I've gone out here with other people who's very familiar with these timber cell units, and they said, like, yeah, there used to be coarse woody debris here, but it's gone, and I can't explain it. But we did find one piece, and I can point that out further, where the track harvester did go over it. And straight ahead of us is the timber cell, and then the timber cell is going to start spreading onto that direction over there. And they marked the trees. I can't recall how they marked them in this unit. I think they marked them in blue. They either spray paint the trees in blue or orange. When it's blue, it's a take tree, and those are the trees that they're going to cut. If it's spray paint with orange, those are leaf trees, and those are trees that are not going to be cut. And then how they know whether it's a leaf tree or a take tree, one of the things that they do is they spray paint around the tree, and then or they put a dot around the bark of the tree. They also put a dot on the bottom, so when they come back here later on, they want to make sure that the logging company cut down the right tree. They can see whether it's like a blue or orange dot.
So this is active logging, or they're through in here?
They have went through this area with a track harvester, and so this area is now waiting to be picked up by a helicopter, and so I'm guessing they're going to be doing that in the next couple of weeks or so. But they have already gone through here and have logged this area. You can see the blue marking on the trees over here, so those are the take trees that are on to your left over there. And then the other thing I want to point out is that when we're walking along the Huckleberry Trail, we can see how like the trail was all nice and everything, and now we're walking into a bunch of puddle and loose mud and everything.
So this is still the Huckleberry Trail?
This is still the Huckleberry Trail, but this is where the track harvester has come through, and you can see the damage it has done and how now the surface has been becoming more difficult to walk through. And this is, and then hopefully this is going to be mitigated when the project is finished, so mountain bikers and equestrians can use the trail. I want to point out this tree right here. Right, it's a coarse woody debris right here. This has looked like a track harvester or something has rolled over it, right where the dog is walking on it right now. It's a kind of good example. You can kind of see the edge of it right there, but you can see it where it has ferns and some vegetation growing on it. It has some rotted. It provides really good habitat to like centipedes and Oregon slender salamanders, and it just looked like that they didn't really attack it or protect this too well. They end up having the track harvester come right through here and run right over it, and where they're supposed to end up protecting it. There's also some track harvester trails on the other side of the Huckleberry Trail that where the mud and dirt has been dug in up significantly because of the track harvester going through there. But I wanted just to give people a good idea that this is when I was talking about the coarse woody debris earlier, this is kind of what I was talking about. About over 10 years ago, we had some local volunteers who came out here and built a trail through this unit, which is Unit 17. I don't know if anyone can tell me where the trail is, but I can't find where the trail is. And that's one of the prescriptions, is that they're supposed to protect the trails. But for this particular trail, the Bureau of Land Management considered it to be an unidentified trail. And I'm trying to find one quote in here. Says they basically said, this is from Cindy Enstrom, her emails, that she sent to me saying, a non-system trail that connects Huckleberry Road with the wetlands loop traveling through Section 17. This trail was not included in the trails inventory completed during the project planning for Annie's Cabin. Thinning and as such is not protected underneath the contract stipulations. BLM is willing to facilitate clearing or rerouting this trail after harvest. And basically, I'm surprised that this wasn't done in survey because I talked to Chris Pathman, who works underneath of Cindy Enstrom in the Bureau of Land Management. And he said he was out here with the volunteers building this trail. So it seemed like the Bureau of Land Management already knew that this trail was here, but they didn't incorporate it into the environmental assessment and didn't do any type of protections for it. But now I can't locate it anywhere, and it used to come out in this area here somewhere. One of the other things I wanted to mention, we saw that coarse woody debris back there, and one of the things that live in coarse woody debris is organ slender salamanders, and they're very little cute creatures. We have found them, bark volunteers have found them in Units 9 and Units 13, and they're basically listed in the organ sensitive species list, so there's not really any protections for them. There's just a species that they want to just continue monitoring and making sure it's not going to end up to be a survey managed list species or a threatened or endangered species.
They seem pretty fragile.
And they are very fragile. They don't really, when they live in that coarse woody debris, they don't really wander too far away from it. They pretty much just stay there for most of their lives. And they survive off of the centipedes for food. And then the BLM also found organ slender salamanders in Unit 6, 16, 17, which we're standing in right now, and 18. But they didn't mention it in their environmental assessment at all, which was strange because they should have mentioned it in their environmental assessment. As I mentioned, they eat centipedes. They also eat snails and spiders. They live mostly on the west side of the Cascades, from the gorge to Columbia Gorge to Lane County. They're on the Bureau of Land Management, U.S. Forest Service, and Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife Sensitive Species list. They have no larva or nymph stage. They just kind of they just come out as a salamander, which is really interesting from the eggs.
Here you go, man.
Oops, thank you. And so that's pretty much it on this story about the slender salamanders. I mean, we were told that there was going to be no ground disturbance from the tractor around these coarse woody debris, but as we saw, that there was a lot of disturbance on the coarse woody debris that's out there.
The old stumps?
Yes.
Do you know much about those?
I do not know too much of the history. They look like it was done a long time ago when this was private lands, and they cut down that tree. But it's now acting as a nurse kind of stump, and other trees growing out of it, which is pretty cool. But it kind of tells you what type of trees that used to run through this forest before man came out here and disturbed it.
And the size of some of this down woody debris left over from that logging that took that big tree says the same thing.
Yeah.
I have a question. You mentioned that the judge said that they didn't want to be second guessing the executive branch about the science that went into these projects. And when you guys sued them, didn't you bring science also to the table? And he just had to disregard your science and take theirs?
Pretty much, yes. We brought it to their table of what we have found out here through our ground truthing efforts, and but he ruled in favor of the Bureau of Land Management over what our practices were.
In a forest canyon, I thought to myself, this ain't the way we should treat our world. No, 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 no. In a forest canyon, I watch
right now we're standing in front of a ancient slump that covered on the Huckleberry Trail, and the Bureau of Land Management came out here and told the volunteers who maintained these trails, saying, well, we can't put a trail over this slump because it's unstable, so the volunteers need to build a secondary trail. So they built this other trail that goes around the slump. But as you can see, they decided that it was not unstable enough so that a track harvester can go over it, which is kind of interesting. And you can see a lot of the damage that the track harvester or erosion that has happened. And I want to quickly show like a photo of like what it looked like before. This is what the slump is. It has
basically standing in the same spot that this picture was taken from, almost looks like.
Yeah, it looked like this was taken on the other side of the slump, which we'll see. And there's a lot of vegetation on it and ferns and stuff. And now all that has been removed. And you can pass this around if people are interested in looking at it. One of the other things, when they first started this logging project this winter, they basically said this area is closed off for recreational people, which is strange because our public lands are open for everyone, and usually it's just not because of OSHA requirements. You're just not allowed to be anywhere where they actually actively log, but if they're not actively logging an area, the area shouldn't be closed to the public. But Bureau of Land Management put up signs. This photo is already kind of getting wet because of the rain, but they made it sound like that they used an incorrect Code of Federal Regulations. Those are what our federal laws are based on, saying that any person who fails to comply with this restriction is subject to following penalties, fines up to $1,000 or imprisonment for not longer than 12 months or both. And our BARC volunteers came out here and saw these signs and said, whoa, this is not correct. People are allowed to be out here. And they put this order basically until March 1st of 2012. So then they, because of BARC volunteers catching this and saying, hey, you can't do this, they came out here a week later and put up these other signs. And these are the signs you probably have seen kind of marked everywhere, just informing the public that there's logging activities out here till March 15th. And at some certain times these trails will be closed, but there's no more language in there saying that they'll give you $1,000 fine or 12 months imprisonment. But it was just kind of just an interesting story to share.
So you saying that the timber company did this, or the Forest Service did this?
The Forest Service, not the Forest Service, but the Bureau of Land Management.
I keep saying that, right? BLM, right?
Yes. So the Bureau of Land Management staff came out here and they posted the signs with a CFR that doesn't match what the CFR states, and says that people are not allowed to access this area.
So the government put those on, not the corporation?
The government did. Yeah. Another creature that's out here is a red treevil, and they have and the significance of a red treevil is that it makes up like half the diet of a northern spotted owl. It's about 6 to 8 inches long, including its tail. And it's on the Survey and Managed Species list, so they have to do. If they found it, they have to basically take a whole acre of land and say this area is closed off. We're protecting this area for the red treevil because it's just a significant species because it's part of the northern spotted owl diet. They're nocturnal. One of the most interesting things about them is that they're the only vole species that lives in the trees. They don't live on the ground. From time to time they do come down the tree to visit the ground. They get a lot of their water by just the rain droplets that happens to go on the firs or go inside the resin ducts of the fir needles. They build nests into trees, and they build like these little tunnels in these nests, and they either build them on their own or they find other nests that has been built and they kind of build off of those nests. And then the BLM has removed 30 acres from units 8, 9, 11, and 12, placing 10-acre buffers because they found red treevils in this timber still. And then I have a picture of a red treevil. And they're really cute and red. They look like a little mouse.
Are they a rodent?
Yeah, I believe they're in the rodent family. But there's going to be a culvert that's been washed out right here by a 100-year rainstorm. The Bureau of Land Management is aware of this. They're going to come back and fix it. It was not part of the logging operations in the woods. It was just due to the massive rainfall. But if anyone had any questions, that's the story behind the washed out culvert that we're going to see in a second. There's a culvert right over there, right next to this slump right here. And this is the other side of the slump that I was telling you about where the truck harvester ran over it. You can see how it got eroded. The Bureau of Land Management says that there's a spring underneath there that's kind of eroding it more. But it was basically a truck harvester came over this, and then I guess it hit some form of spring, and so the spring started eroding the channels a little bit more. But as you can see, there's no erosion control being done in any of this area here, and I've been contacting Bureau of Land Management about it, and they said they're going to eventually put up some silt fences and some straw in this area, but I haven't seen it yet, and it's right next to a stream with a culvert, and it's a lot of loose sediment in this area.
Are they going to regrade this road?
I don't know what they're going to do. I've been trying to get that answer from them. I talked to them, mentioned that there's a lot of vegetation that was on the slump before. Now it's completely exposed for weathering, and they haven't really given me a good answer yet on what they're planning to do. Yeah, the thing with the sediment is that when it gets into the water, it depletes the oxygen for fish. And we have a bunch of different salmon from steelhead to chinook to coho that swims up the Malala River. And so we want to make sure that there's not that we don't load sediment into the streams just because it depletes the oxygen for the fish and other creatures that live in the stream. This area that we're in right now is the helicopter landing. You can see that they put a lot of large rock in this area, and they have pretty much opened up this area. And there's a lot of loose sediment along the sides in this area here too. And this was not marked in the original environmental assessment, but I guess they came in here and decided to put the helicopter landing over here and in this area. And the big impact to the trail users is this large rock that you see that we're standing on right now. This is really rough on the hoofs of horses and mountain bikers who use the Huckleberry Trail. And when I first saw this, I was completely shocked, and I was thinking, like, how are they going to remove all this? But then with the conversations with the Bureau of Land Management, they're saying they're actually going to leave all this rock here and put finer gravel on top of this, so mountain bikers and equestrian users can go through this area. But I mean, it's just shocking to see how exposed it is, and there's a lot of loose sediment that can be exposed to weathering all around us right now, and there's not any really form of erosion control. But up ahead is Unit 15 that we'll be walking by. There's going to be a lot of skid trails that's kind of going up this hill here. And I was kind of shocked because I didn't realize that they were going to try to ground base log this timber sale during the wintertime. I was thinking they're going to wait more till summertime to do this one, just because it's more on the slope. But they decided to go ahead and log that one.
In a forest canyon, I walk where the angels tread, only to find man's tread. Legacy of stumps and waste. In a forest canyon, I watch the eagles soar. In a forest canyon, no place for them
Right now, Unit 16 is right over here. kind of difficult to see it, but it's just right behind those trees over there. One of the interesting things is that there's a washed out old forest road here where the culvert has completely blown out and the creek has completely taken over. And so one of the questions one of the things that we were trying to think in our head is like, how is the logging company going to get over to Unit 16 when this road is completely washed out like this? And pretty much the answer is that they went over there and they, it appears that they chainsawed the trees. And so my guess is basically they chainsaw and they're going to basically helicopter the trees out of there because there's just basically no way that they're going to be able to cut through here. The local community who maintains all these trails out here have asked the Bear Lane Management to fix the culverts because they've seen a lot of blown out culverts along these trails, and they basically said, well, there's trails, so we don't consider them a need to basically fix culverts. But then they kind of switch back and call these roads when it's a logging operation. So that's kind of the interesting thing. But you can see it's kind of amazing though to see how the creek just kind of decided that it's going to restore itself by blowing out that culvert and then just kind of taking over a road and washing out the road up here.
So this was man-made?
This was not man-made, no. This was, culvert used to come through here, and then they had a road going over it. And then basically, we had some form of large storm event where a lot of rain just came down and it just blew out that culvert. Mm-hmm. And it's just, what happened is probably like the culvert couldn't handle the water, and the water started finding some other route to take, and then the whole road just ended up being washed over. What we're looking at straight up here is Unit 15 that's along the slope. It looks like they brought the track harvester or some type of equipment up through here and kind of cut it like a kind of big opening through the woods in this area. You can see some scarring. That's the chipping on the bark over there. Those are one of the things that when we do our post-logging monitoring, that we like try to document how many trees that got scarred from their operations, because that does some damage to trees later on.
Well, that's scarring. Doesn't it allow diseases to flourish?
Yes. Diseases do flourish when scarring happens.
Like, is that
It
scarring?
exposes the bark.
It exposes the bark. Grady, do you know what type of diseases?
Well, a lot of different just bacterium or fungus and stuff can get in there. And also, I'm noticing too, I mean, when they pass that close to the trees, when they drive over their roots, there's a lot of fungal diseases that attack the butt or the base of the tree. And so a lot of those get invited too. So if you're driving your tractor along and you drive over one infected tree, it's basically going to pass that infection on to every other tree's roots that it drives over. So
Through the tractor treads?
yeah, if it drives over an affected root, all the fungus will just release the spores and they'll adhere to the tire, and it'll just be slowly dropping those spores as it kind of cruises along through the forest. So yeah.
And do you know if there's a one particular purpose with the logging, or is it multiple, like for furniture or lumber?
Paper or whatever you mean.
A lot of our timber that's cut here in the United States is sent to Asia, and I think it's like something about 60% or so. It's a pretty large number. It doesn't stay here in the U.S., and it's kind of a funny thing because it's like it's sent to Asia, and then they make products and they send it back to us instead of of us keeping the timber here in our country and manufacturing here and creating U.S. jobs here. It's being shipped to overseas and helping economies of China and Japan, and then that wood's coming back to our country as some form of product.
I think with federal lands though, that is all milled and processed domestically, but it is like the majority of the wood that's produced here is state and private, and all of that is pretty much all of that is going abroad. So it would be pretty easy to shift the burden of, like, if we weren't shifting all that abroad, there would really be no need for federal logging at all.
Well, how much?
It's
of
like 3% or something like that nationally
Which
comes out of federal
countries do they
forest.
go to?
Primarily China. I mean, I think it's the only economy that's actually growing. So I mean, I don't even know the housing market's been in a slump for, what's it been, 15 years now. So there's not really domestic demand for wood. And what we're seeing on Mount Hood is like there's timber sales that were planned in like 2006 that still haven't been cut yet. Because it's a private contractor that buys the right to cut the wood, and they're basically just gambling on it. They just sit on it, waiting for the market prices to rise. And in some cases, like we're 7 years out and they still haven't logged it yet.
So you said it's 3% of Oregon's industry now, like it's kind of got smaller over time? the logging industry here?
No. It's still more than that. I think it's only 3% of our domestic needs. Our domestic wood needs come out of national forests. So national forests as a whole, nationwide, only provide a very small portion of our wood needs. And if we weren't shifting all of our private timber and state timber abroad, then there would be, no need.
I see. Yeah, they mill it domestically. I've seen the lumber yard.
Yeah. And that's just federal lands. I mean, it's state lands and private lands. It's raw logs largely that are shipped abroad.
Really?
What percentage of the logs that come out of Oregon are state and private compared to the national forest?
That's a good question. I don't know offhand. I bet it's substantial. I'm sure it's substantially more, but I don't know.
Just one other thing is that this timber sale, they put expiration dates. I think it's like 7 years out from the NEPA, the National Environmental Policy Act document, which is the environmental assessment for this timber sale. They have like about 7 years, I believe, to complete a project. And that expiration date is actually July of 2013. So they need to make sure that all this logging operation is done before 2013. If it's not done by 2013, then they have to, stop it at that point, and then the whole environmental assessment process has to begin again, where they have to analyze and everything. So that's kind of basically what their goal is. And so right now, they have logged units 8, 9, 12, 15, 16, and 17. They haven't logged any other units. They're planning after the end of this month that they're going to stop for a while, and then they're going to come back later this summer again. There's about 25 units in this timber sale. It's kind of interesting to see if they're going to be able to get all of them before July of 2013.
It's a lot more resource intensive and a lot more expensive to have a helicopter pulling these logs out than a tractor yarder. But you also have like a little bit of, in the wintertime, the price of wood goes up a little bit because there's not as much in the market because people aren't logging as much. So somehow you get a little bit of balance with a more expensive way of logging, but there's also wood costs more, so you get a little bit of balance. And that might be some reason why Ferris is kind of trying to do some of this in the winter, is to kind of make it a more profitable sale.
Oh, watching